Hi there, and welcome to the Fantasy of Fire and Ice podcast presented by Sportstopia. My name is Chris Crawford. I am joined by my good buddy Drew Silva. Today is Thursday, September 28th, the very final Thursday of the MLB regular season. Drew, you excited about it?
Sure, yeah. It feels like we've been waiting for an actual full-ish Thursday slate.
Yeah,
We have, I think, 12 games today, if my
yeah,
math is correct. Yeah, that's pretty good, quick math there, Drew. So,
exactly.
like some decent matchups to dig into. We can actually throw out some contrarian plays with some confidence, like we do usually on our Friday shows and really all other shows, except Mondays, I guess, are usually pretty light. But yeah,
Yeah,
a lot to dig into here.
absolutely. Yeah, big, huge baseball games still left to be played, and lots of really good stuff to be used on this optimizer. Drew, we got some injury stuff that we got to talk about. Anything real big that we need to get off our chest first?
Yeah, Ryan Mountcastle was activated from the injured list Wednesday after missing exactly 10 days because of AC joint shoulder inflammation, and he's expected to make his full return to the Orioles starting lineup Thursday against the Red Sox and left-hander Chris Sale. And Mountcastle has crushed lefties this season, a 340 batting average, a 1056 OPS against Southpaws. So assuming he is going to be in the Orioles starting lineup, I'd be thinking about throwing him into a DFS stack of some sort. Luis Ariz sprained his left ankle during a pregame infield drill last Tuesday and then aggravated the injury when he slipped on the dugout steps Saturday at Lone Depot Park, I think they're calling it these days, when they shut off the lights for Tanner Scott's closer entrance theme. Who knew that he actually had a closer entrance theme? Um, Ariz hasn't played since Saturday, since aggravating that injury. He missed Wednesday's doubleheader against the Mets and it's probably questionable for the Marlins heading into Thursday's series finale at Citi Field. And then Chris Bryant has missed the Rockies' last two games because of an illness. At least it's not the foot or the shoulder. We could see him return to action Thursday against the Dodgers, but worth checking that lineup when it comes out. More on that game in a little bit. Lourdes Gurriel was scratched from the Diamondbacks lineup Wednesday versus the White Sox after experiencing tightness in his left shoulder during pregame batting practice, but manager Torey Lovullo said he has a good shot to return for Thursday's series finale. So it's nothing serious. A couple of other minor things out there, but that covers the real relevant DFS style players on this slate.
Yeah, that's kind of nice. I mean, look, we wish there were no injuries, but it's kind of nice that we're seeing pretty healthy teams going into this
Well,
postseason, right?
there've been some early shutdowns, with
Yeah,
guys that are dealing with nagging stuff. So yeah, we've kind of like cleared out the scraps, and
sure.
what teams are left and still vying for it are usually going to be trying to play their best players. It was nice to see Corey Seager return on Wednesday. He got hit in the forearm
Right.
by a pitch on Tuesday. He's going to get some MVP votes, even though he's
Yeah,
only played in, I think, 114 games this season.
for sure. Yeah, I think that there is pretty clearly a big three in the American League. Shohei Ohtani is going to win this thing, but I think
Yeah.
Corey Seager and Julio Rodriguez are all going to receive a lot of down votes. It would be surprising to me if that wasn't the top three. Hey, speaking of top three, before we get into the stack, I wanted to ask you something, Drew. So I'm kind of enamored by this Damien Lillard trade that has
Sure.
happened here, the three-team trade. I'm not going to ask you for your NBA advice. We'll get to that point at some point. Do you wish there was more stuff like this in baseball? Do you wish you saw more of these type of star type moves in this type of sport? Because the one thing the NBA definitely has is the NBA has these star type players get moved on the regular. You don't see it a whole heck of a lot in baseball, especially with prospect hoarding happening more and more. Do you wish you saw more of this stuff?
Yeah, the NBA is really good at owning headlines, aren't they?
Yes.
I haven't even dug into all the facets of this trade. Like with the baseball season winding down,
Sure.
it takes me a while to catch up on what basketball players went where before their season begins. I kind of have to
Yeah.
like do a whole depth chart run through. As someone who writes about the sport, I'm okay with there's not massive trades
Sure.
all the time with so many different implications.
Hmm.
It would be a little more interesting, I guess, but basketball's such a different sport because really, like, if you have three superstars, we've
Yeah.
seen this, you can go
Yeah.
win a championship. In baseball, it's not like that. You need so much more depth. You can't have big holes on your roster like you can sometimes survive in the NBA. So I just think they're totally different sports in that regard.
Sure.
There's probably a way for baseball, and we've been saying this for years, to own the headlines a little bit more,
Mhm.
especially in those pockets of the sports calendar where they're kind of the only game in town. I don't think they've done a great job of that, but I'm not like a marketing expert. I don't. When people say that, they usually don't have a solution behind it.
Right.
It's usually just you need to market your players better. Okay, tell me in what way do you want that to happen?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And look, the NBA thing too, it's like you brought up, like 3 superstar players is like guaranteeing you make the postseason as long as everybody stays healthy and gives you a chance for a championship. You can have 3 superstar players in baseball and guarantee nothing.
Angels.
Look at the hello Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Um, but it is, I will point out, it is fun to see these type of moves. It is. Now it's also devastating too. Like if you're a fan of the Portland Trailblazers, it absolutely stinks that the guy that you've been rooting for 11 years is going to be playing somewhere else. And it's not like he's going to a bigger market. He's going to flip in Milwaukee. There is no, all due respect to Milwaukee, great city. Portland, great city too. But it's not like he's going to the shine of Los Angeles, the shine of Miami, something like that. So, it can be frustrating for those folks too. But I was just kind of fascinated by it just because we just don't see moves like that in baseball very much. I was going through a list the other day of the most star-studded MLB trades, like involving players who were stars at the time. And it's like, remember that Kenny Lofton for Marquise
I was
Grissom
gonna
trade?
say, like, I think if he went back to the '90s, it was more prevalent.
Yeah.
I think, like, front offices in general have gotten almost too smart,
Yes.
like too data driven, to where they're very risk averse. I mean, these are all like economics majors from the top economic schools in the country, and
Sure.
you're going to be very risk averse. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, it makes sense the way that the what baseball has become in terms of like blockbuster trade. It's always going to be quantity for quality, 3 prospects for a
Yeah.
star. It's never going to be exchanging stars unless like there's a way that you can match up with a team, like a pitcher for a hitter.
Yeah.
I know this is going to be an active trade market this winter in
Yeah.
baseball. I have no doubt about that. With like the Padres, the Mets, the Yankees, the Red Sox are all in panic mode. My Cardinals they have to go to the trade market to fix their pitching talent issues if they're going to do that. There's going to be things are going to be flying. Like, I mean, it's going to be a wild winter. Beyond there's a lot of exciting free agency, obviously led off by Shohei Ohtani, and then some of the starting pitchers that are available. We're in for an active offseason, I think, and hopefully Ohtani signs quickly so that it kind of moves. But I don't.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what the Otani thing is, something I can see that gets done on December 15th, and it's something I can see getting done on March 15th. There's anything in between too, but here's opening for the former instead of the latter. All right, let's take a look at some lineups that we're looking to stack. But before we do that, actually, Drew, make sure that you guys are checking out the Contrarian Edge Optimizer. It's an awesome tool. It is something that has helped us so much over these last few weeks. If you're watching on YouTube, if you look in the bottom left corner, you can see a little code to scan with your phone. You can also find it at fantasysportslogic.com, or you can find it at sportstopia.io. And please check out sportstopia.io. We have new articles coming up every single day. We have them for NFL stuff. We're going to have them for NBA stuff. It's really great stuff. All right. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, Drew, who is a lineup that you're looking to stack for this Thursday night?
Just to briefly touch on the weather, there are 2 trouble spots.
Okay.
There's one in the kind of the afternoon slate at Detroit. Um, like a 30% chance of rain around game time, and then it gets progressively worse throughout the evening.
Right.
This is the Royals and Tigers, so they might just wind up not playing for that game, honestly. They're going to finish with 161 games played, but hey, maybe they could fit it into a window. And then also, what was it? Pirates at Phillies is about a 50% chance of rain at game time. I think that game will get played. It looks like there's going to be a window later in the night, but there could be a delay in that one. So keep in mind for your starting pitchers, if that delay hits in like the second inning, that's always frustrating. My first stack is going to be the Dodgers at Rockies. I'm going with
Right.
Freddie Freeman, Max Muncy, Jason Hayward, David Peralta. This is the chalkiest of all chalky stacks, like the
Sure.
Dodgers at Coors Field. But We can sneak it into like a decent budgetary place on a DFS lineup by fading Mookie Betts. I'd never really recommend fading Mookie Betts, especially with the second half that he's putting together, staying in that NL MVP conversation with Ronald Acuna Jr. But let's go ahead and plug in an all left-handed approach against the Rockies, who are throwing right-hander Chris Flexen. We can save some funds that way by going with Hayward and Peralta as two of my outfielders. They're pretty much always in the lineup when it's a right-hander on the mound for the opposition. Flexen has actually pitched a little better at Coors Field than you might expect him to, but overall a 7.01 ERA in 96 and a third innings this season between the Mariners and Rockies. He's not good, and I don't think he's going to fare very well against this Dodgers attack in that thin air in Denver. James Outman's another possibility if you're not loving David Peralta, who's mostly struggled this year. Miguel Rojas, who's really struggled, but has hit a little bit better lately. And if you want to plug in a cheap shortstop and lower the overall cost of this stack, but man, it feels like the winning lineup on this Thursday slate is going to have at least a chunk of the Dodgers offense at Coors Field. It's not a very contrarian play, but our formula here in stack attack mode spat this out as the best stack. And you really don't need to hear much more from me as to why that would be.
So I shouldn't use Chris Flexen as one of my starting pitchers tonight.
I wouldn't recommend it, but hey, we're contrarians.
Can you imagine?
Give me the argument for it.
That perfect game is going to be one we're going to have to spend a good half an hour on tomorrow, Drew. There's no doubt about it. And I mean, it is obvious. Point is obvious, but that is just in such an easy play, and the fact that you can target some cheaper hitters with it as well. I mean, you can argue that like going with like a 5-person stack actually makes sense tonight, just because there are cheaper options and it allows you to get some of those star players. I'm going to go with another cheaper option. I'm going to go with the Marlins against David Peterson. I like their right-handed bats in this one. I also, again, I've talked about this a bunch and it's worked out so far. Playing these teams that are motivated for the postseason matters, folks, and the Marlins are very motivated. These are big games that are coming up against them. David Peterson has been fairly he's not very good against left-handers or right-handers, but right-handers can certainly get him. So I'm going to go with some right-handers to play in this one, and a switch hitter as well. I'm going to go with Yuli Gurriel, Jake Berger, Brian De La Cruz, and John Birdie. All of these guys extremely cost-effective. You can get your 4-team stack, and then you can still attack those star options. I like this option a lot. I think that you're not going to see a ton of rostership between these guys. Not going to see these guys being rostered in the high percentages. So another chance for contrarian play, but still a chance for success as well.
I'm targeting that game for my starting pitcher too. That's a tease. Yeah. Big tease. My second stack is going to be Blue Jays versus Yankees, the visiting Yankees. This will be in Toronto. Bo Bichette, George Springer, Brandon Belt, Kevin Biggio. We'll call this like a do factor play with the Blue Jays, who were surprisingly shut out in the first 2 games of this 3-game series against the Yankees. Thursday's game being the series finale. They're still holding on to that second AL wildcard spot as the AL West teams kind of tangle for the third and final AL wildcard. Toronto's been a frustrating team all year. The offense should be better than it has been. But this can be like a get right type of game at home in Rogers Center against Luke Weaver and his 6.47 season ERA. Weaver actually pitched pretty well last time through the Yankees rotation, 5 and a third scoreless innings against the Diamondbacks. He walked off the mound to a standing ovation. If you had that on your 2023 baseball bingo card, Luke Weaver getting a standing O in the Bronx. Chris has your payout at the window. Thank you, Chris. But yeah, the Blue Jays, they should feasibly break through on Thursday night. Kevin Biggio stands out to me. If you're not going to use this stack, I would say at least consider plugging him in as a cheap option at second base. Davis Schneider had been getting a lot of run at second base, and he was off to a roaring start to begin his major league career. But Schneider's 0 for 30 with 12 strikeouts over his last 8 games and not getting much playing time anymore. It should be Biggio in there tonight. And I always like Brandon Belt against a lefty. Or even against a righty, Luke Weaver being a righty. And then I'm paying up for Bichette and Springer as well. I like Brandon Belt against righties, I should say.
Yeah.
And then I think it's smart to pay up for Bichette and Springer. I would probably fade Vlad Jr. I just don't know about the state of his knee. He's been playing through a lot of pain
Right.
throughout the month. I think if the Blue Jays do turn it on tonight, it's going to be Bichette and Springer driving that offense, and then I don't know, maybe Biggio and Belt cleaning up the scraps.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. And look, the fact that they have been shut out over these first few games is something to also keep in mind. They are absolutely due for a little bit of an offensive reckoning, facing Gerrit Cole, who I think Gerrit Cole probably locked up the AL Cy Young with that performance if he hadn't already. Like, I'm not sure if that was even really a question mark, but with Luis Castillo having a disappointing start and then Gerrit Cole doing what he's done over his last couple, I think it's still crazy to me that this is going to be his first trip. That is going to be the first time for somebody who has been so good. Although sometimes I forget that Nolan Ryan never won a Cy Young award. So it's not like it's like the predominant, like, determining factor of whether a pitcher is dominant or belongs in the Hall of Fame or anything like that. But it is crazy that Gerrit Cole has been that good and has yet to take home. Go.
Yeah. There's like some situational luck involved with that.
Oh, sure.
Like,
yeah.
And they're just, I think you brought that up last week that Gerrit Cole hadn't won a Cy Young, and it is surprising, but he has a lot of top 3 finishes. We'll say that, and there's just been a guy that the voters like a little bit more. I mean, he's been a better pitcher than Nolan Ryan. Nolan Ryan had the longevity and all the no hitters, but in terms of like peak dominance, Gerrit Cole is one of the best of our generation for sure.
Speaking of dominance, let's talk about some dominant starting pitching anyway. Let's talk about some starters. I'll go first and say that I'm going to go ahead and use Corbin Burnes today against your St. Louis Cardinals. In 2 of his last 3 starts, he has not allowed an earned run. He has a 2.92 ERA in the month of September with a very strong 29-7 strikeout to walk ratio over 24 2/3 innings. The fact he's facing a St. Louis lineup that is not exactly been the most dominant as of late either, Drew, and has not exactly looked the best on paper as well, is something to keep an eye on here. I like Burnes. It should be kind of one of his final tune-ups for the fact they've clinched this division now. They can kind of set things up, but I imagine that Burnes will still be going deep enough. Want to make sure that he's fresh, of course, for the postseason, but also that he's ready for it. You don't want too much of a lag time, and obviously the Brewers are nowhere close to the Dodgers and Braves, so we do know that they will be playing in that wild card series, likely against the Cubs or Marlins. So yeah, give me Corbin Burnes. It's going to be very expensive, but I like him as an option quite a bit.
Why do you hate Richie Palacios and Jose Fermin?
They cut me in line at Wawa once, and you do it once, and I'll never forgive you.
Did he really?
Yeah. No.
Andrew Kisner, Luke and Baker. You don't like this Cardinals offense? I haven't really been watching the Cardinals for a couple of months. So I had to check who's been playing for them. Apparently, Nolan Arenado and Wilson Contreras were early shutdowns. Breaking news. My first starting pitcher that I'm going to recommend, and all of my picks here are kind of paying up, but we have the options on this Thursday slate to pay up for some pitching and for some lineup stacks. I like Jesus Luzardo at the Mets. I like attacking the Mets offense with any left-hander. It's a bottom 3rd, almost bottom 4th offense this year against left-handed pitching.
Yeah.
Luzardo has soared well past his career high in innings. What is he at? 171 1/3 innings right now after throwing 100 1/3 innings last year in the majors. But the Marlins wake up Thursday tied with the Cubs for the 3rd NL wildcard spot, both at 82 and 76 on the year. So this is must-win territory like we were talking about. And Luzardo's been a workhorse for the Marlins all season, especially with Sandy Alcantara succumbing to an early shutdown with that UCL sprain in his right elbow. There's another bingo spot for you, Luzardo being a workhorse in the year 2023. But he has an overall 3.73 ERA, 198 strikeouts in those 171 1/3 innings. So it should pass the 200 strikeout threshold tonight at Citi Field. He hasn't faced the Mets since the first week of the season, but he threw 5 2/3 scoreless innings in that game. I think Luzardo delivers solid run prevention tonight with a good number of Ks, hopefully soars well past the 200 mark, and a decent shot at a win in what is, again, a must-win game for Miami heading into the final weekend of the regular season.
Yeah, I like that call a lot. And yeah, you're going to have to pay up for sure. But anytime that you can use a left-hander, I think against the Mets right now is a pretty strong option. Mine's going to be a little bit more of a contrarian play. I'm going to go with AJ Smith-Shawver against the Cubs. And look, I'm going to be flat out honest with you. It's a huge risk. He has not gone deep into games in the minor leagues. He has kind of struggled in his limited time in the majors. But if you really want to take a shot here and you want to get some strikeouts and you want to get a chance at a 5-inning win, why not? Why not take a chance on something like this and then load your lineup up? Like, get as many Dodgers in the lineup as you want if you use an option like AJ Smith-Shawver. Like, get as many Philadelphia Phillies against Luis Ortiz as you want, again, if you want to use that type of play. This is those throw in the dart type of situations. I can't guarantee that AJ Smith-Shawver is going to be good, but I know he has the stuff to be successful. And Atlanta has done an excellent job with these type of arms. You've seen flashes of brilliance from Smith-Shawver in his short time up. Yes, you take a chance that he's going to throw 3 innings of 2-run baseball, and that's going to really hurt you. But you also get the chance of 5 innings of 1-run baseball with 6 or 7 strikeouts, and you can load up on other offensive players. Talk about the ultimate contrarian play here. Why not go with a talented rookie on one of the last regular season days where you do have a full boat, where you can add in those star players, knowing that there is a chance for upside? I'll take that shot.
Yeah, I like Smith-Shawver in terms of like the cheaper, options that are playable for starting pitchers on this slate. Because, I mean, Ryan Yarbrough, maybe, but he's at Coors Field and he's not going to pitch really deep, even if he might even come in as like piggyback relief role, which sometimes sets you up as a good shot at a win.
Right.
But you're playing with fire there. And yeah, I mean, like the contrarian spitting out Luke Weaver, I'm not touching that. It spit out Smith-Shawver too. I think it in terms of like the mid tier to lower tier priced starting pitchers, I like that move. My other one's going to be Chris Bassett versus the Yankees. The ever solid Chris Bassett. He just always feels so safe in season long or DFS. I already laid out what's on the line for the Blue Jays. I like their offense to do work here on Thursday against the Yankees and Luke Weaver, and for Bassett to thoroughly outduel Weaver as the Jays fend off what would be a hugely frustrating 3-game sweep at home against a team that has been fully out of it for a while, mathematically out of it since the weekend in the Yankees. Bassett racked up 8 strikeouts over 6 2/3 innings last time out against the Rays, earned the win. That's what we'll aim for in this one. Pitch into the 7th inning, get us several strikeouts. He had back-to-back 8-inning outings in his final start of August and his first start of September. We'd gladly accept him going the distance in that fashion too. Bassett's already up to 15 wins for the 2nd straight season. Let's get him to 16 tonight. Okay, Blue Jays, however that song and dance goes. I don't think it's such a bad idea to ride with both their offense and their starting pitcher, with the narrative and the numbers both on their side in this matchup. It's a get right Thursday for the Blue Jays as they nail down a wild card spot, and they're going to be a dangerous team in the postseason. I know that like Blue Jays fans are kind of freaking out, and I picked them to win the AL East, and the Orioles are going to claim that. But man, the Blue Jays get in the tournament. They're not a team that you necessarily want to face with the offense and the pitching that they have, and some decent relief pitching at the back end too.
You know what's going to be fascinating too, Drew, is that like it's very likely that it's going to be them as the 5 seed, and they're going to take on probably Tampa Bay. Yeah. It's going to be a fascinating matchup, man, just because of the styles are kind of different. The
way different,
way different types of teams, and then you're probably looking at like those guys going up against the Orioles next, and that's going to be fascinating too. Like, I don't want to look too far ahead, and I'm still holding out the slimmest of hopes that my Seattle Mariners can win 4 straight games against Texas and still make this thing. And, but it's very unlikely. It's just kind of fascinating to see how how these matchups are setting up, because I'm excited for all of them. I'm excited to see even Minnesota against Houston. I think could be a really interesting matchup as well, especially with how Houston has not looked very good, except for last night, of course. Thanks a lot, Yordan Alvarez. We're never recommending Yordan Alvarez on this show. I just made that rule right now. I'm
gonna
sorry.
do it tomorrow.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Fair enough. Let's look at some cheaper options that we can use using the Contrarian Edge Optimizer. Like I said, I do like that stack of Miami. You'll see on the screen that I do have some of those options up there. But who are some other cheap guys that you like for this week, Drew?
Sam Haggerty kind of sticks out to me as a cheap outfield option. Got a
Mm.
turn as the Mariners DH on Wednesday, and he had a single, drew a walk, and stole a base before Mike Ford came on to pitch hit for him. If Haggerty's in Seattle's lineup on Thursday against the Rangers and lefty Jordan Montgomery, the optimizer likes it. He's flashed a dynamic skill set and limited big league action this year. I don't think he's a bad play. Make sure he's in the lineup though, because they've been moving things around with their outfield and DH spot. I laid out my Blue Jays stack earlier, but I'm also now eyeing Alejandro Kirk as a cheap option at catcher.
Sure.
I believe he's at 3,000 on DraftKings. Say you want to go with the Dodgers stack, which I would really recommend, but get a piece of Toronto's matchup too. If you're really following my lead, I don't know, that's a little bit scary, but Kirk's price is really low because he's been a disappointment on the whole this year, but we know there are some big hits in that bat of his. Like I said, this entire Blue Jays team is due, so I wouldn't mind getting some of them into my lineup.
Yeah, that makes sense a lot. I like that Haggerty call quite a bit too. When he's in the lineup against left-handed pitching, he's been pretty effective, and he does have very little chance of getting a combo meal, but you have the chance of getting the fries instead of the hamburger because he does have very good stolen base. By the way, he also has a dog named Manicotti, which is like just
That's
perfect
a great
name for
Yeah.
I believe it's a one of those like French bulldogs too, which is a very fun little combination. It's kind of like Adam Sandler has Meatball. He's got Manicotti. Anything else that you're really interested here in, Drew?
I mean, like Charlie Blackmon, why not at home in Coors Field? It's intriguing to get some Rockies if you're going to stack the Dodgers too. Just
Yeah.
hope for like a 10-8 game. It could be one of his final few home games in a Rockies uniform. I think they're at home for their final series too, so he might have a nice send off at some point this weekend. I love Nolan Jones too, but he's gotten expensive and rightly so. Brendan Rodgers, Orlando Arcia, Eddie Rosario. We didn't really talk about Atlanta, but if you want a cheap piece of that Atlanta offense, I guess you talked about Smith Shawver, but they could go rake like they always do on Thursday. Austin Wells is a cheap catcher that would be going against my guy and Chris Bassett, but he's starting to show his offensive talent. Back-to-back games with the homer before he got a day of rest on Wednesday. Wouldn't mind plugging in Austin Wells and seeing if he can go 3 straight games with a homer.
Sounds good to me. That's going to do it for us. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to the Fantasy Fire and Ice podcast. We really appreciate your support. Drew and I will be back tomorrow, but stay tuned for the NFL show, which will feature Corey Parsons, Stu Monotone Football, and of course, yours truly. Hopefully I can give you another play like Ronnie Bell scoring a touchdown, but I can't guarantee it. Make sure you're following all of our socials. I'm at Crawford_MILB. Drew is at Drew Silv. Really appreciate the support, and we will see you next time.